The thick envelope from Northwood University felt like a winning lottery ticket in my hands. I slid into my usual seat at the kitchen table, my heart pounding a happy rhythm. My father, Thomas, sat across from me, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed a spreadsheet. "I got in, Dad," I announced, my voice trembling with excitement. I pushed the acceptance letter toward him. He didn't look up. "That's nice, Rachel." His tone was flat. "We need to talk about the college fund." My smile faded. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "The money's gone. I used it to help your brother start his business." The words didn't make sense at first. "Gone?" "But, that was my future," I whispered, disbelief turning to betrayal. He just shrugged, a cold, dismissive gesture. "You're smart, Rachel. You'll figure it out." Dinner that night was a special meal to celebrate Derek's new auto repair shop. The air smelled of roast chicken, but I felt too sick to eat. "The grand opening is next week," Derek bragged, puffing out his chest. Dad believed in me enough to make a real investment. Our mother, Helen, beamed at him with pure pride. Our son, a business owner. I pushed my food around my plate, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Derek didn't thank me. He didn't even know the investment was my stolen future. I was invisible. Later, as I cleared the table, I overheard my parents talking in the living room. My father's voice was low and firm. "She's not business material anyway. She'll be fine in an office job somewhere." The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. Upstairs in my room, the pink walls and childhood trophies suddenly felt like a prison. I pulled my old suitcase from the closet and started packing, my movements sharp with anger and hurt. My mother appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked, her voice tight. "I can't stay here," I said, not looking at her. She sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. "Maybe this will teach you some responsibility, Rachel. The world doesn't owe you anything." I zipped the suitcase closed, the finality of the sound echoing in the quiet room. I had $300 to my name. I left without another word, the porch light flickering off behind me as I walked to my friend's car. I looked at the acceptance letter still clutched in my hand and whispered a promise into the night, "I'll find another way." The next few months were a blur of exhaustion. I juggled 2 jobs, working the early shift at a Greasy Spoon diner and the evening shift shelving books at the local library. My days started before sunrise and ended long after dark. Community college classes were squeezed in between, my textbooks stained with coffee. I was always tired, but I refused to quit. The first time I got an A+ on my accounting midterm, I stared at the red ink in the library's dim light, a tiny flame of pride igniting inside me. One busy lunch shift, I helped a stressed student at my diner booth calculate his tip and budget for the week. After he left, I found a business card tucked under his coffee cup. Arthur Green, financial strategist, it read. I stared at the card for a week, my pride warring with my desperation. Was this pity? Finally, I dialed the number, my voice shaking as I introduced myself. Mr. Green remembered me. "The diner mathematician," he said, a smile in his voice. He offered me a junior internship, just filing and data entry. It was a foot in the door. I was terrified it was a joke, that I'd show up and be turned away. On my first day, I wore my only blazer, feeling like an imposter. Mr. Green, a kind man with warm eyes, shook my hand. "If you're half as sharp as you sounded at that diner," he said, "you'll go far here." His belief felt like a life preserver. The office was a world of crisp suits and quiet efficiency. I devoured every task, no matter how small. While the other interns, all from prestigious schools, gossiped by the water cooler, I studied old financial reports, learning the patterns. My humble background made me an outsider, but my work ethic was undeniable. I could find discrepancies no one else noticed. One afternoon, my supervisor, a no-nonsense woman named Brenda, called me into her office. My stomach dropped, sure I was in trouble. Instead, she leaned forward. "You're wasted here with these filing tasks," she stated. "There's an analyst opening at the regional office. I put your name forward. Are you interested?" The promotion was my first real victory. Sitting in my new, slightly bigger cubicle, I felt a surge of confidence. On a whim, I sent a polite text to my parents. Asterisk got a promotion at the firm. Hope you're all well. Asterisk there was no reply. The silence was its own answer. Through a mutual acquaintance, I heard whispers about Derek's shop. He was behind on his loans, his business bleeding money. My father was reportedly covering the shortfalls, draining his and my mother's savings. Months after my text, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was my mother. Her voice was strained. "Rachel? Your brother, he's in a bit of trouble. You're good with money now, right? We need your help." The call shifted to speakerphone. My father's voice, older and wearier, joined my mother's. "It's time to support your family, Rachel," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "They wanted me to give Derek a loan, a large one, to save the business from collapse." I listened to their pleas, their justifications. I thought of my empty college fund, my nights on a friend's couch. I took a deep, steadying breath. "No," I said, my voice calm and firm. "I can't do that." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, my father's voice erupted, sharp with fury. "After everything we did for you? This is how you repay us?" I heard about the collapse through the town gossip mill. Derek's auto repair was officially bankrupt. The creditors took everything. My parents, having poured their retirement savings into a sinking ship, had lost a significant amount. Part of me ached for their loss, for the dream that had crumbled to dust. That flicker of pity was extinguished when my father called me, his voice raw with anger. "This is your fault," he yelled down the line. "If you weren't so selfish, if you'd helped your brother like family should, maybe we'd still have a home." He hung up before I could respond. The injustice of his words left me shaking. My parents were forced to downsize, moving to a small rental house in a quieter, less expensive town. It felt like the end of an era for them. For me, it was the beginning. With my steady salary and careful savings, I walked into a bank and signed the papers for my own apartment. It wasn't large, but it was mine. The silence there was peaceful, not lonely. I had built this myself. One evening, my phone lit up with my father's name. I hesitated before answering. His voice was different, stripped of its usual bluster. "Rachel," he began, sounding old and tired. I think I made some mistakes." 6 years later, I walked into the boardroom of Sterling Dynamics, the scent of fresh coffee and polished wood filling the air. At 28, I was the newly appointed chief financial officer. The glass walls looked out over the city I now called home. My first major task was leading a strategic merger with a struggling auto parts supplier. I reviewed the files, my eyes scanning the list of assets. One name jumped out at me, a small, failing branch that had once been an independent shop. My blood ran cold. The family name was right there on the acquisition document. Miller. I decided to personally visit the branch. The building was exactly as I remembered, though the sign was now faded and read Derek's Auto, under new management. The current manager, a weary-looking man, gave me a tour. The previous owner had a good heart, he mentioned, wiping grease from his hands. But no head for numbers. Drove the place into the ground before we absorbed it. I kept my expression neutral, a professional mask. Inside, my heart was pounding. I nodded sympathetically. "What happened to him?" I asked, my voice carefully casual. Driving back to the city, I stopped for gas at a roadside station. A disheveled man was haggling with the attendant, trying to sell a box of used wrenches. It was Derek. He looked a decade older, his clothes worn, his shoulders slumped. He didn't recognize me at first. I was in a tailored suit, leaning against a car he could never afford. He approached me, a hopeful, desperate look in his eyes. "Spare some change, miss?" he asked. Then he squinted. "You look familiar, where do I know you from?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with 6 years of history. Back in my office, I reviewed the expansion plans. Sterling Dynamics was opening a new regional office. I pulled up a map, my finger tracing the outline of a small town. It was the same town my parents had moved to. A quiet, strategic location with low overhead. It was also a chance to bring jobs to a place that needed them. I called a meeting with the board. "I have the perfect location for the new office," I announced, a plan forming in my mind. "Let's hold the initial interviews locally," I added, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. The conference room in the temporary hiring center was bright and impersonal. A stack of resumes sat before me. We were hiring for various positions, from custodial staff to financial advisors. I flipped through the applications, my mind already on the next meeting. Then I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. I was looking at a resume for a financial advisor position. The name at the top was Thomas Miller. My father. His work history was spotty, his qualifications outdated. He had no idea I was the one in charge. My assistant's voice broke through my shock. "Mr. Miller," she said, opening the door. "The CFO will see you now." The door opened and my father walked in. He was wearing a suit that was slightly too big, his posture nervous. He kept his eyes lowered, focusing on the chair opposite me. "Thank you for this opportunity," he began, his voice uncharacteristically humble. He finally looked up, ready to greet his potential boss. The color drained from his face. His mouth fell open slightly. He looked from my face to the nameplate on the desk and back again. The same kitchen table dynamic, now perfectly reversed. I maintained a polite, professional smile. "Please," I said, gesturing to the seat. "Have a seat." "Mr. Miller." I conducted the interview with calm precision. I asked him about market trends, about risk assessment, about long-term financial planning. I was professional, not cruel. But with every question, he grew more flustered. He stumbled over basic terms, his answers vague and uncertain. He was failing the very test of competence that I had spent years mastering. The poetic irony was so thick I could almost touch it. This was the future he had told me I wasn't material for. After 20 minutes, I closed his file. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Miller," I said gently. "We'll let you know our decision." That evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was cold and sharp. "Your father said you humiliated him in that interview." "How could you, Rachel?" I felt a familiar ache, but it was smaller now. "I didn't humiliate him, Mother," I replied, my voice soft but steady. "I treated him exactly like any other applicant. He just wasn't qualified." There was a long silence on the other end. I could feel her bitterness through the phone line. "You've changed, Rachel," she finally said, the words heavy with accusation. I took a deep breath, my gaze sweeping over my peaceful apartment. "I had to," I answered. Weeks passed. The new office was being set up, and we needed to fill a junior logistics consultant role. It was an entry-level position, involving inventory tracking and data entry. It was honest work for an honest wage. I looked over the candidate list. My father's name was there, having applied for multiple openings. I picked up my pen and quietly authorized the hire. He got the job. He arrived for his first day, looking relieved to have any work at all. At the staff meeting, the team lead introduced the new hires. Then he gestured to me. "And this is Rachel Miller, our Chief Financial Officer, and your direct superior." The shock on my father's face was a story in itself. I made a point to treat him with detached professionalism. I was fair. I praised good work from the team and offered constructive criticism. I never singled him out for special treatment, either to belittle him or to help him. He kept his head down, doing his work. I'd sometimes catch him watching me during meetings, a complex mix of shame, regret, and dawning realization in his eyes. He was seeing, firsthand, the life he had tried to deny me. The life I had built anyway, through sheer will and intelligence. One morning, I arrived at my office to find a plain white envelope on my desk. My name was written on it in his shaky handwriting. For Rachel. I sat down and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, a full page written in his familiar script. It wasn't an excuse. It was an apology. A real, raw one. I thought I was helping your brother by giving him a leg up, he wrote. Asterisk, I thought you were strong enough to manage on your own. I was wrong. I see now I broke something in our family, in you, that I can't ever fix. I am so sorry, Rachel. Asterisk, I read the words over and over, tears welling in my eyes and tracing warm paths down my cheeks. They were tears I'd been holding back for a decade. When I was done, I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer, a private moment, unread by anyone else. A month later, I drove to my parents' small house for dinner. It was the first time in years. The rooms were cramped but clean. Derek was there, quieter now, having gone through a program to get back on his feet. The tension was still present, a ghost at the table, but it was softer. We talked about neutral things, the weather, the town. Forgiveness wasn't a switch that had been flipped, it was a slow, tentative thaw. As I was leaving, my father walked me to my car. He shoved his hands in his pockets and looked at me, really looked at me. I'm proud of you, kiddo, he said, his voice thick with emotion. The local newspaper did a feature on the new Sterling Dynamics office and its economic impact on the town. I was named Regional Business Leader of the Year. The award ceremony was held in my hometown's community hall. To my surprise, my family was there, sitting in the back row. They looked nervous but present. When I walked onto the stage, the spotlight was bright. I adjusted the microphone and looked out at the crowd, my gaze briefly finding my family. 6 years ago, I began, my voice clear and strong, I was told I'd figure it out. I paused, letting the words settle. I did. After the ceremony, backstage amidst the bouquets and discarded programs, my father approached me. He looked small in his best suit. That was quite a speech, he said softly. He hesitated, wringing his hands. Do you think? I mean, after everything, could I ever work under you again someday? For real? I looked at this man who had once held my entire future in his hands and had let it go. I saw the regret, the humility, the hope. I gave him a gentle, genuine smile. You already do, Dad, I reminded him softly. His eyes welled up with tears. He quickly tried to blink away. He whispered, then I guess I finally did something right. I stood outside the sleek, modern building of our new headquarters. The morning sun glinted off the glass and steel. The construction was complete, the grand opening scheduled for next week. This new building stood on the exact same plot of land where my brother's failing auto shop had once been. I hadn't torn their world down out of spite. I had simply built a new, better one on the same foundation. I hadn't destroyed them, I had rebuilt what they broke, but stronger, smarter, and entirely on my own terms. A deep, quiet peace settled over me. They took my future once. I built another, and this time it's mine to give.